Hello, my name is Scarlet Rose, and I want to tell you about the most satisfying revenge I've ever executed. Some people might call me vindictive, others might say I'm ruthless, but I prefer to think of myself as someone who simply believes in justice. When the man I loved, trusted, and built a life with decided to betray me in the most humiliating way possible, I showed him that underestimating me was the biggest mistake of his life. Let me start from the beginning. 3 years ago, I was living what I thought was the perfect life. I was married to David Mitchell, a successful corporate lawyer who seemed to have everything going for him. We lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs, drove expensive cars, and were the envy of everyone in our social circle. I had given up my promising career in marketing to support his ambitions, hosting dinner parties for his colleagues, accompanying him to every corporate event, and playing the role of the perfect wife. David was charming, intelligent, and incredibly handsome. When we first met at a friend's wedding 5 years earlier, I was immediately drawn to his confidence and ambition. He swept me off my feet with romantic gestures, expensive dinners, and promises of a future together. He proposed after 18 months of dating, and I said yes without hesitation. I thought I had found my soulmate. The first 2 years of our marriage were blissful. David was attentive, loving, and we seemed to share the same dreams and values. We talked about starting a family, buying a bigger house, and growing old together. I supported him through late nights at the office, celebrated his promotions, and stood by him when he faced difficult cases. I genuinely believed we were building something beautiful together. But then things began to change. It started subtly. David began working even longer hours, coming home after midnight most nights. He became distant, distracted, and our conversations became increasingly superficial. When I tried to discuss it with him, he would blame it on work stress and promise that things would get better once he made partner at his law firm. I wanted to believe him. I made excuses for his behavior, told myself that this was just a temporary phase, and that our marriage would return to normal once the pressure at work decreased. I threw myself into renovating our house, volunteering at local charities, and maintaining our social life. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The signs were all there, but I chose to ignore them. David would take mysterious phone calls and step outside to talk. He started going to the gym at odd hours, claiming he needed to work out to manage stress. He became secretive about his phone and computer, quickly closing screens when I entered the room. He started buying new clothes, paying more attention to his appearance, and even changed his cologne. Most telling of all, our intimate life virtually disappeared. David would come to bed after I was already asleep and leave before I woke up. When I tried to initiate physical intimacy, he would claim he was too tired or stressed. He stopped complimenting me, stopped noticing when I dressed up for him, and treated me more like a roommate than a wife. The breaking point came on a Friday evening in March. David had told me he was working late on a crucial case and wouldn't be home until after midnight. I had planned to surprise him with his favorite dinner and had spent the afternoon preparing everything. Around 9 o'clock, I decided to bring him food at his office, thinking he would appreciate the gesture. I arrived at his law firm's building and took the elevator to his floor. The office was mostly empty, with only a few lights on in the conference rooms. As I walked toward David's office, I could hear voices coming from inside. I was about to knock when I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was David's voice, but he wasn't discussing legal matters. He was talking to someone in intimate, hushed tones. I pressed my ear against the door and heard him say, "Yeah, I love you too, baby. I can't wait to get away from all these pretense." My heart started pounding, and my hands began to shake. I quietly tried the door handle and found it unlocked. I pushed the door open just a crack and saw David sitting at his desk with his back to me, talking on the phone. But that wasn't the worst part. On his desk, clearly visible, were several photographs of David with a woman I didn't recognize. They were embracing, kissing, and looked completely in love. In one photo, they were lying on a beach together, looking blissfully happy. In another, they were dressed elegantly at what appeared to be a romantic dinner. I listened as David continued his phone conversation. "I know it's difficult, sweetheart, but I promise we'll be together soon. I'm working on the divorce, and my lawyer says I can minimize what she gets if I play my cards right. Just be patient a little longer." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Not only was David having an affair, but he was planning to divorce me and apparently trying to cheat me out of what I was legally entitled to. The man I had loved, supported, and sacrificed for was not only betraying me but plotting to financially destroy me as well. I quietly backed away from the door and left the building, my mind reeling. I drove home in a daze, feeling like my entire world had collapsed. Everything I had believed about my marriage, my husband, and my future was a lie. I sat in my car in our driveway for over an hour, crying and trying to process what I had discovered. When David came home that night, he acted completely normal. He kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, and even complimented the dinner I had prepared. He was so casual, so comfortable in his deception, that I realized this affair had been going on for much longer than I had suspected. That night, as David slept peacefully beside me, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him immediately. I wasn't going to break down and beg him to work on our marriage. Instead, I was going to be smart about this. If David wanted to play games, I would show him that I was a much better player than he ever imagined. The next morning, I began my investigation. I started by going through David's home office while he was at the gym. I found credit card statements showing expensive dinners, hotel rooms, and jewelry purchases that I had never received. I discovered a second cell phone hidden in his desk drawer. I photographed everything, being careful to put everything back exactly as I found it. Over the next few weeks, I became a detective in my own home. I tracked David's movements, monitored his phone calls, and gathered evidence of his affair. I learned that the other woman was named Rebecca Chen, a paralegal at a competing law firm. She was 25 years old, ambitious, and apparently had been having an affair with my husband for over 8 months. I also discovered that David had been siphoning money from our joint accounts into a separate account that I didn't know about. He had been systematically hiding assets, clearly preparing for a divorce that he planned to initiate on his terms. The betrayal went so much deeper than just infidelity. He was stealing from me and planning to leave me with as little as possible. But David had made a crucial mistake. He had underestimated me. He saw me as the naive, dependent wife who had given up her career for him. He thought I was weak, that I would be devastated and helpless when he left me. He had no idea that I was actually very intelligent, resourceful, and when pushed to my limit, absolutely ruthless. I started by secretly consulting with my own divorce attorney, using money from an account that David didn't know about. I learned about my rights, what I was entitled to, and how to protect myself. I also hired a private investigator to document David's affair and help me uncover all of his hidden assets. Then I began phase 2 of my plan. I started rebuilding my professional network, reaching out to former colleagues and exploring job opportunities. I had been out of the workforce for 3 years, but I was determined to become financially independent again. I also began documenting everything in our marriage, every contribution I had made, every sacrifice I had made for David's career, every way I had supported him. Meanwhile, I played the role of the loving, unsuspecting wife. I continued to attend social events with David, host dinner parties, and maintain our public image. It was incredibly difficult, but I was motivated by the thought of how satisfying my revenge would be. The private investigator I hired was excellent at his job. Within a month, he had provided me with detailed documentation of David's affair, including photographs, hotel records, and even recorded conversations. He also uncovered that David had been hiding significantly more money than I had initially discovered. But the most shocking revelation came when the investigator dug deeper into Rebecca Chen's background. It turned out that she had done this before. She had a pattern of targeting successful, married men, having affairs with them, and then either blackmailing them or manipulating them into leaving their wives for her. David wasn't her first victim, and I suspected he wouldn't be her last. This information gave me an idea for the perfect revenge. I realized that I could destroy both David and Rebecca simultaneously, and in a way that would be absolutely devastating to both of them. I started by creating a fake social media account and befriending Rebecca online. I presented myself as a young, single woman who was new to the city and looking for friends. Rebecca, being naturally manipulative and always looking for new connections, quickly accepted my friendship request. Through our online conversations, I learned more about Rebecca's plans and motivations. She was using David not just for financial support, but also to gain access to his professional network. She was planning to use his connections to advance her own career, and she had no real feelings for him. She saw him as a stepping stone to a better life. This knowledge made my revenge even sweeter. David was being used just as much as he was using me, but he was too arrogant and infatuated to see it. After 2 months of careful planning, I was ready to execute my revenge. I had gathered all the evidence I needed, consulted with the best divorce attorney in the city, and prepared for every possible scenario. But I wanted to do more than just win a divorce settlement. I wanted to completely destroy David's life, just as he had destroyed mine. I started by contacting David's law firm's managing partners. I provided them with evidence of David's affair with Rebecca, including the fact that she worked for a competing firm. I pointed out that this relationship could be seen as a conflict of interest and potentially unethical. I also suggested that David's behavior reflected poorly on the firm's reputation. Law firms are incredibly image-conscious, and David's firm was no exception. Within a week, David was called into a meeting with the managing partners. He was given an ultimatum: end the affair immediately and undergo professional counseling, or face termination. But I wasn't finished. I had also discovered that David had been billing personal expenses to client accounts, essentially stealing from his own pockets. I provided this evidence to the State Bar Association, filing a formal complaint about David's professional conduct. Next, I targeted Rebecca. I had learned from our online conversations that she was engaged to another man, someone she had been with for 3 years and who had no idea about her affair with David. I created a detailed portfolio of evidence showing Rebecca's affair and sent it to her fiancé. I also sent information about Rebecca's history of targeting married men to her employer. As a paralegal, she was expected to maintain high ethical standards, and her behavior was clearly inappropriate and potentially damaging to her firm's reputation. But the most satisfying part of my revenge was yet to come. I had been planning a public confrontation that would humiliate both David and Rebecca while making it clear to everyone in our social circle exactly what kind of people they were. David and Rebecca had been planning to attend a charity gala together, with David telling me he had to work late that night. The gala was a major social event that would be attended by everyone in our professional and social circles. I decided this would be the perfect venue for my revelation. I purchased a ticket to the gala and prepared my grand finale. I had hired a professional photographer to document the event and had prepared a presentation that would expose David and Rebecca's affair to everyone they knew. On the night of the gala, I arrived looking absolutely stunning. I had spent months preparing for this moment, working out with a personal trainer, getting professional styling, and buying the most beautiful dress I could find. I wanted to look like the confident, successful woman I was, not the victim David thought I was. I spotted David and Rebecca across the room, and they looked shocked to see me. David immediately approached me, trying to act casual and asking why I was there. I smiled sweetly and told him I had decided to surprise him by attending the gala. Throughout the evening, I mingled with everyone at the event, being charming and sociable. I made sure to have conversations with all of David's colleagues, all of our friends, and everyone else who mattered in our social circle. I was setting the stage for what was to come. Near the end of the evening, during the portion of the gala when people typically gave speeches about the charity being supported, I approached the microphone. I had arranged this in advance with the event organizers, telling them I wanted to make a special announcement about a donation. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of people who had been part of my life for the past 3 years, I felt a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. David was standing near the back of the room with Rebecca, and I could see the panic in his eyes as he realized something was wrong. I began my speech by talking about the importance of honesty, integrity, and loyalty. I spoke about how devastating it can be when the people we trust the most betray us. I talked about the importance of supporting each other and standing up against deception and manipulation. Then I revealed everything. I showed photographs of David and Rebecca together, read excerpts from their text messages and emails, and detailed the financial fraud that David had been committing. I explained how David had been planning to divorce me while hiding assets and trying to leave me with nothing. The room was completely silent as I spoke. I could see the shock and disgust on people's faces as they realized what David had been doing. I also revealed Rebecca's history of targeting married men and explained how she had been using David for her own gain. I concluded my speech by announcing that I was divorcing David and that I had already filed complaints with the State Bar Association and his employer. I thanked everyone for their support and said that I was looking forward to starting a new chapter in my life. The aftermath of my public revelation was swift and devastating for both David and Rebecca. David was immediately suspended from his law firm pending an investigation. When the investigation revealed the extent of his professional misconduct, he was terminated and faced disbarment proceedings. Rebecca was also fired from her job, and her fiancé broke off their engagement. Her reputation in the legal community was destroyed, and she was forced to leave the city to find work elsewhere. But my revenge didn't end there. I had also been working with forensic accountants to trace all of David's hidden assets. When we went to court for our divorce, I was able to prove that David had been hiding significant amounts of money and had been planning to defraud me. The judge was not sympathetic to David's situation, especially given his professional misconduct. I ended up receiving far more in the divorce settlement than I would have under normal circumstances. I got the house, half of all assets including the ones David had tried to hide, and substantial alimony payments. David was left with legal bills, professional sanctions, and a completely destroyed reputation. The most satisfying part was seeing how David's life completely fell apart. He lost his career, his financial security, his social standing, and his relationship with Rebecca. She had abandoned him as soon as it became clear that he was no longer useful to her. David tried to contact me several times after the divorce was finalized, alternating between anger and pleading. He accused me of being vindictive and destroying his life. But I felt no sympathy for him. He had chosen to betray me, steal from me, and humiliate me. I had simply returned the favor. I used the money from the divorce settlement to start my own marketing consultancy. Within a year, I had built a successful business and was financially independent. I had also begun dating again and had met someone who appreciated my intelligence, strength, and independence. Looking back on that experience, I don't regret anything I did. David had made the choice to betray me, and he had to face the consequences of that choice. I had simply ensured that those consequences were proportional to the damage he had caused. Some people might say that my revenge was excessive, that I should have simply divorced David quietly and moved on with my life. But I believe that people who betray others should face real consequences for their actions. David had planned to destroy my life, and I made sure that he understood exactly how that felt. The experience taught me several important lessons. First, I learned that I am much stronger and more capable than I had ever imagined. I had always seen myself as someone who needed to be taken care of, but when I was forced to stand up for myself, I discovered that I was perfectly capable of fighting my own battles. Second, I learned the importance of trust and how devastating it can be when that trust is broken. I had trusted David completely, and his betrayal was one of the most painful experiences of my life. But it also taught me to be more careful about who I trust and to always protect myself. Third, I learned that revenge, when executed properly, can be incredibly satisfying. I don't believe in turning the other cheek when someone deliberately tries to hurt you. I believe in making sure that people understand the consequences of their actions.
Yeah, just wait.
Finally, I learned that the best revenge is living well. While David's life fell apart, I rebuilt mine and made it better than it had ever been. I am now more successful, more confident, and happier than I was when I was married to him. The story of my revenge against David and Rebecca became somewhat legendary in our social circle. People were shocked by the extent of David's betrayal and impressed by how thoroughly I had destroyed
是没有人做的东西的，你看，他有
Some
的3个
people
人，有
were
的4个
critical
人，
of my methods, but most people understood that I had been wronged and had simply fallen back.
这没吗？
I occasionally hear updates about David's life through mutual acquaintances. He eventually found work at a much smaller law firm, making significantly less money than he had before. He has struggled to rebuild his reputation and his financial security. He never remarried, and I suspect that his experience with Rebecca made him much more cautious about relationships. Rebecca, as I mentioned, left the city after the scandal. I heard that she eventually found work in another state, but her career never recovered from the damage to her reputation. She also never married, and I suspect that her history of manipulating men became well known in her new location. As for me, I am now happily remarried to a man who appreciates my intelligence, strength, and independence. He knows the story of my revenge against David, and he says it was one of the things that attracted him to me. He likes the fact that I am not someone who can be easily fooled or manipulated. My business has continued to grow, and I am now more successful than I ever was when I was married to David. I have built a life that is entirely my own, and I am proud of everything I have accomplished. I still live in the same city where all of this happened, and I occasionally run into people who were part of my old social circle. They always treat me with a mixture of respect and caution, as if they understand that I am not someone to be trifled with. I like that reputation. The experience of being betrayed by David and getting my revenge changed me in fundamental ways. I am no longer the naive, trusting woman who gave up her career for a man. I am now someone who understands the importance of protecting myself and standing up for what I believe in. I also learned that betrayal, while painful, can sometimes be a gift. David's betrayal forced me to become stronger, more independent, and more self-reliant. In many ways, I am grateful for the experience because it showed me what I was capable of achieving on my own. If I could give advice to other women who find themselves in similar situations, it would be this: don't be a victim. When someone betrays you, especially someone you love and trust, it's natural to feel hurt and devastated. But don't let those feelings paralyze you. Instead, use them as motivation to fight back and reclaim your life. Take time to plan your response carefully. Don't act impulsively or emotionally. Gather evidence, consult with professionals, and think strategically about how to protect yourself and your interests. Remember that the person who betrayed you has already shown that they don't care about your well-being, so you shouldn't feel obligated to protect theirs. Most importantly, focus on rebuilding your life rather than just destroying theirs. The best revenge is creating a life that is better than the one you had before. Show the world that you are stronger than the person who tried to break you. My story is not unique. Every day, women discover that their husbands have been cheating on them, lying to them, and planning to abandon them. Some of these women become victims, allowing themselves to be destroyed by the betrayal. Others, like me, choose to fight back and reclaim their power. I chose to fight back, and I regret nothing about that decision. David thought he could use me and then discard me when he found someone more exciting. Instead, he learned that I was not someone to be underestimated. He learned that actions have consequences, and that betraying someone who loves you can cost you everything. The satisfaction I felt watching David's life fall apart was incredible. It was justice, pure and simple. He had planned to destroy my life, and I made sure that he understood exactly how that felt. The fact that Rebecca also suffered consequences for her role in the betrayal made it even more satisfying. I know that some people might judge me for the extent of my revenge. They might say that I should have taken the high road, that I should have simply divorced David and moved on with my life. But I believe that people who betray others should face real consequences for their actions. David didn't just have an affair. He systematically deceived me, stole from me, and planned to leave me with nothing. He showed me no mercy, no consideration, and no respect. Why should I have shown him any? The fact that my revenge was so public and so thorough sent a message to everyone in our social circle. It showed them that I was not someone to be pitied or dismissed. It showed them that I was strong, intelligent, and capable of fighting my own battles. That reputation has served me well in my new life. People treat me with respect because they know that I am not someone who can be easily fooled or manipulated. They know that if they cross me, there will be consequences. I am often asked whether I would do anything differently if I could go back and change what happened. The answer is no. I handled the situation exactly as I should have. I was smart, strategic, and thorough. I protected myself and my interests while ensuring that David and Rebecca faced appropriate consequences for their actions. The only thing I regret is that I trusted David so completely in the first place. I should have been more suspicious when his behavior changed. I should have investigated sooner. But I was in love, and I wanted to believe the best about the man I had married. That naivety cost me emotionally, but it also taught me valuable lessons about trust and self-protection. I will never again put myself in a position where I am completely dependent on another person. I will never again ignore red flags or make excuses for someone's suspicious behavior. My experience with David and Rebecca was painful, but it was also transformative. It forced me to become the strong, independent woman I am today. It showed me what I was capable of achieving when I put my mind to it. And it gave me the most satisfying revenge I have ever experienced. Today, I am living proof that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. It can make you stronger, more successful, and more resilient. David thought he was discarding me for someone better, but instead, he lost the best thing that ever happened to him while I went on to build an even better life. That is the ultimate revenge, not just destroying someone who wronged you, but showing them that they never deserved you in the first place. David lost a woman who loved him, supported him, and would have done anything for him. Instead, he ended up with nothing, while I ended up with everything I had ever wanted. I hope my story inspires other women who find themselves in similar situations. Don't be a victim. Don't let someone's betrayal define you or limit your future. Instead, use it as motivation to become stronger, more successful, and more independent than you ever thought possible. And if you decide to get revenge, make sure it's thorough, strategic, and absolutely devastating. People who betray others should understand that actions have consequences, and those consequences should be proportionate to the damage they caused. My name is Scarlett Rose, and this is my story of betrayal, revenge, and ultimate triumph. I hope you found it as satisfying as I did.